Good morning, everybody. Last week, or say earlier on in the week, we discussed the idea of Tashlumim and when a person is able to say Tashlumim, meaning if a person misses a tefillah, there's a makeup opportunity. You know, like makeup tests, right? So when they say in life there are no makeup tests, there are makeup davenings that you're able to do. And we concluded on Tuesday that a person who is mazid, a person who's mazid and misses a tefillah, they cannot make it up. But anybody else, the language of the Gemara was ta'a, and it's a very, shall we say, a flexible terminology, what we saw on Tuesday. In terms of ta'a, we allow them to actually make up a tefillah right afterwards. Okay? That's where we kind of concluded on Tuesday. So again, if someone sleeps in and misses davening in the morning, if someone's at work, if their job, whatever the case may be, or they intend to go at a certain time, and then something happens and they kind of get distracted, all those are examples of when a person is permissible to do tashlumim. And if a person was exempt because they were let's say, involved in tzorchei tzibur the entire time, or was a doctor who was literally busy in surgery for the entire time, and it's then in theory he gives me pater from davening tashlumim. However, nonetheless, we saw that before you say your tashlumim tefillah, you should say, if I'm pater, then I'm pater, and if I'm still chayav, then I'm saying it. So therefore, better to say this is a tashlumim nedava, voluntary type of tashlumim, just in case you're actually totally exempt from doing tashlumim. That was a summary of Tuesday. What I want to do on page 256. I mentioned it on Tuesday, but now I actually want to see the source that we didn't do. So it says the 257. Says the Gemara the following: Tarabanan. If a person forgets, or again, Ta makes a mistake, doesn't have mincha on Friday, mitpalelin below Shabbos time. So what do we see from here? The Gemara says that even if you miss a whole davening, you can make it up on Shabbos, even though the Amidah is a totally different Amidah. Nonetheless, there's still tashlumim.
Oh, never mind.
And again, the opposite case, where you forget to do a Shabbos davening, there's still makeup on Motzei Shabbos. So we had that question about, right, can you do Shabbos to non-Shabbos? We see that you can. Now, here we go. This is our Motzei Shabbos davening. So 2 marvs. Says the Gemara, Mavdil barishon, you say Havdalah in the first one, meaning by saying, when the Gemara says, you say in Atachonin, you say Havdalah in the first one, what is that implying? That the first one is the real one or the makeup one? What's it implying, gentlemen? If the first one you say Havdalah in,
The real one.
the first one's the real one. And what about the second one? So even though you're doing Tashlumim, and even though your Mariv is a Havdalah type of Mariv, because it's Motzei Shabbos, nonetheless you only do Havdalah, right? Tachanan Tanu in the first Mariv. V'im Hivdil B'Shniya. What happens if you do Havdalah in your second and not in your first? V'lo Hivdil B'Rishon. So what in fact are you stating? By making Havdalah in your second Mariv and not your first Mariv, what are you implying? The second one's the real one. Says the Gemara, Shniya altalo, the second Mariv counts. Rishona lo altalo, your first Shon Esrei, i.e. the one that you kind of thought doesn't count. What does that mean? Lo altalo. Says Rashi, Mavdo barishon, Pam Rishona mitpala b'shvel tefillah shalachshav. Vichach omer, Bavdala b'chonen dad. Vashnei b'shvel tashlumei tefillah Shabbos. She'ena mavdo ba. Shniya altalo, says Rashi, b'shvel tefillah Motzei Shabbos. Rishon lo altabo, she'ena klum. And here we go. Here are the key words in Rashi. She'ein lo lahakdim tefillah sha'avar zmana l'tefillah shezmana achshav. A person is not allowed to say the makeup Shon Esrei first, because that was the past. You say what you're obligated to do right now. And if you have intention to flip it, you need, by the way, to do a third time. We'll see what the halacha is. Says the Shulchan Aruch 14. That's our case. Lo yatzai de tefillah shi tashlumim. V'etzarich lastor v'plel otah. So it appear from this Shulchan Aruch. That's 3 Shon Esreis, guys, for counting. The first one that you thought was tashlumim. Your second one, which was Mariv, and therefore you did Havdalah. And your third one, which is your real tashlumim, because your first one didn't count. V'chein hadin b'chol makom shetzurech litpalal tefillah tashlumim. Okay, that's Shulchan Aruch. Comes on Mishnah Berurah and says, time out. Wait a second. Not so fast. Here we go. By the way, we see cases where the, shall we say, for lack of a better term, the more contemporary Achronim have no problem arguing on the Shulchan Aruch. Right? We see it all the time with the various contemporary. We see many Achronim argue with the Shulchan Aruch. So when the Shulchan Aruch says again, if you can argue against the Shulchan Aruch, you can. You need a proof. You need an argument, right? You got to take what he says very much into consideration. But many poskim we know are not afraid if they feel the need to counter the Pesach of the Shulchan Aruch. And here's an example. Come to the Mishnah Berurah in Source 15. Just look at the second in Ot Zayin. Perush. So again, it's mostly Shabbos. Your first marv that you're saying, you think it's Tashlumim, so you didn't have Dal in it. Says Shulchan Aruch Lo Yatza. Says Mishnah Berurah, Delo Tignu Rabbanan Ashlama Ela Bizman Hit Askut Bat Tfilah Chiyuvit V'Lo Kodem L'Chein. Meaning, when you have to do Tashlumim, what's your head to do Tashlumim? Once you're saying your amida that you need to say, and he referred to it as Tfilah Chiyuvit, your obligatory davening. Chazal then said, okay, since you did your obligatory davening, we'll tag on Tashlumim, but not the reverse. You cannot do your Tashlumim before your chiyuv. You have to do your chiyuv first. And Chazal allowed you after you said your chiyuv, Shon Esrei, do your Tashlumim.
What about
V'yesh?
Mariv, technically, or shit? So,
But we've accepted his chova. That's what Gemara says. Okay, now, but here we go. Here comes on the word Mishnah Berurah. V'yesh mefakfakin lamar. She'ein sarich lachzor v'litpalel. Says Mishnah Berurah, time out. I know the Shulchan Aruch said you got to daven that third Shon Esrei because first one didn't count. Not so quickly, because of those who question this psak. Ella im ken gila dato befirush betfilato shashniya hi l'shem chavar shan tashlumin. If a person says this davening is for tashlumin, this davening is my chiyuv, right? Or more, and they flipped it. Maybe in such a case you could argue. So when you do your Havdalah, so you're making an emphatic statement. By making Havdalah only in your second one, what are you saying? That my first one was Tashlumim. That's why I didn't do Havdalah in it. So if you intentionally don't do Havdalah in that first one, and then you intentionally recite Havdalah in your second one, you're making a bold statement what your intents are. And here's why, of course, Mishnah Berurah is saying what he's saying. Why he's being mefakbek on the Shulchan Aruch. He has the Pri Chadash. He has the Pri Megadim. She'ein lanu ela divrei mechaber v'chenetika hay darkei chaim la'alacha umikol makom tov yoter shabbat shechazol mitpalel. Better do the following. When you say that third Shon Esrei, right, which is a lot, Yitin of Yomar. You should say the following. Im eni mechuyav litpalel pam shenit ani mitpalel ota b'tor nedava. Again, remember our shtick? We saw the shtick on Tuesday. If we don't know for chayav to do this tashlumin, better to give yourself an out and say, if I'm obligated to say this a third time, because maybe I flipped it around, then I'll say it. If I'm not obligated, then it should be a Torah to nidava, a voluntary type of prayer. Okay. Now, what happens if when you do your makeup Shon Esrei, you mess up with a v'tein talum matar or v'tein bracha, right? And you know you made a mistake, right? So, says the Mishnah Berurah 15, tet, ach, im hitpel hashniya l'tashlumin, v'arishona shel chova, v'ta'a b'shel chova, v'lo amar ba v'lo amar ba talum matar, ofen shetzarech l'chzor ba, meaning, how come you have to tzorech ba? Because either you know for a fact you messed it around, or it's a suffix in the first 30 days, right? We know that. So again, what did you do? You said your first one, which was chova. You did your... and now you've done your tashumin. And then you're like, oh my goodness, I forgot what? Uh-oh. Your tashluming tefillah, even with a mistake of a tein tolumata or of a tim, is okay. Excuse me. But what did you not fulfill? Your real mariv that you needed to say properly, but tein tolumatar, you need to repeat. For tashlumin, if you mix that up, it's okay. The avshit palel chiyuvit b'ta'ut hayta, even though your obligatory feel was messed up. Lo amrinan command lo itpalel klal dam yalin. You don't say that. Wait a second. You did your chiyuv one only after your tashlumin. Remember, like we saw. No, that we don't say. We shouldn't become Malcolm made the tefillah shnei Tashlumim Zman tefillah because Tashlumim was the Zman tefillah. V'chen G'etzer Bazer Shitpal tefillah Rishona L'chiyuv V'Taba V'Shchachacho Yisip Ofen Tzorich L'Zor V'Yitpalal Lotav. Okay. So we see from here. One second. So we just reach these two conclusions, and we'll ask a question. Aleph. Im lo gilad dato b'firush. If it's not clear, she'at tefillah rishona hayal Hashem Tashlumim, that he messed up. That meaning, the first one referred to Tashlumim. Al af shlo talo Tashlumim ve'alav lachzor yipolat tefillah nosafen. Adiv shitna im eina muchav ba. You should chayav l'tfa'in nedava. If you're not really so sure, if you're emphatic about flipping it around, then daven that third one and say maybe it's for nedava. Mitpalel im rishona Hashem chova taba. If you made a mistake in that first one, he doesn't lose his Tashlumim. He just needs to repeat his chiyuv one. Question.
What about for like Yellow Diablo? We said for like the 10th.
I think it's the same thing.
Even if it's not Rosh Chodesh, for example, anymore, or like.
Wait, so you forgot?
Because Chol Moed you have to repeat no matter what.
Right.
So like, let's say you forgot and it's. Well, I guess Chol Moed won't really work because you're doing.
You always do. Right.
But fine. So Rosh Chodesh, let's say you forgot. And
what by Mincha and Tomorrow? So we see by if it's by Shabbos, then it for sure apply to Rosh Chodesh, right? If we see that if you forget, no. Just like if you forget a Shabbos davening, you don't daven Mincha on Shabbos afternoon. It was winter, you slept too long. Right. You wake up, Shabbos is over. Sure, it's never happened to anybody before. So what happens? You wake up, there's black outside. What do? You daven two Shabbos, but the weekdays.
So you wouldn't say the other.
Right, and let's say Shabbos is Rosh Chodesh.
Yeah. Right. Or even like a Wednesday, and Thursday,
right.
Or Wednesday night.
Look, again, like if for Shabbos, right? Oh, you're saying just as Yalvi, yeah, you don't do that. Because at that moment, it's not. It's not Chiv, it's Rosh Chodesh.
So how does that work then? Like, I mean, it's a little off topic, but like the other way around. Like, when you daven at like the Plug Mincha, for example, and it's Rosh Chodesh, you say Yalav Yavo
at Marav,
but it's not Rosh Chodesh.
It is, but you accept Marav.
You're davening it like at the plug minion. It's still light out. It's not.
You can't do malacha if it's Shabbos. When you daven, you accept Shabbos.
I'm saying like during the week, like
that night. If you were to go home and wash, you need to bench it and say Yalav Yalav. Of course.
So then, why one way if it's not Rosh Chodesh you wouldn't say it, but the other technically isn't Rosh Chodesh either? Like this was this week. When was Rosh Chodesh on?
Tuesday.
Right. So let's say Monday night at Mariv or evening. It's like.
So at Marv, you need to
Marv at 7:15, and it's not dark out for another hour.
Right, so you need to do, and you forgot Mincha that day.
No,
you don't do
I'm not forget anything. I'm just saying in general, like
why would you
say, but it's not
because it's Marv. You're of course once you have Marv declaring on the next day.
So then, you could. Then why doesn't that? It's different than for like a Tashlumim if it's not.
Tashlumim is saying I miss my obligatory davening. I'm doing a Tashlumim. I'm not saying that now I'm going back in time, and I'm saying that I'm davening Shemona Esrei, and now it's really Tuesday afternoon again, or whatever, Monday afternoon again. No, it's Tuesday, it's Monday night, it's halachically Tuesday. I'm going to daven, I missed my tefillah from before, so I'm going to make it up. So it's almost as if God give you a gift. You're allowed, it's like Chazal give you a heter. Yes, you can do Tashlumim. So it appears you shouldn't. Avarz Mano, Batel Karbinah. Remember, we saw that Havamina on Tuesday.
It's just like a general, it's just for general tefillah, Tashlumim.
Right, don't do something.
Specific.
Right. And therefore, if you mess up in Vaten Tolamata or whatever, you don't repeat it.
Right.
Because it's not quite the same, right? Okay, Mishabur. This could be a very practical case. I'll tell you where this comes up. This comes up if you're down to the Tzibur, and it's Rosh Chodesh, and you forget Yavi Yava. But you're the Yishat Tzibur. If you then have to repeat Shemona Esrei, everyone's going to be waiting for you. So we know the halacha. If you forget Yavi Yava, or mess up in Vaten Tolamata, your Chazot Hashatz can count as your tefillah that you kind of messed up earlier. So it's called the Mishabura in 16. It says, "Uchshehu shatz yotze yedei shlam b'masha machzir tefillah b'koram." So let's say it's the same thing. Let's say you're done with the Amud Shacharis, and you're like, I never did Marv last night. So what can you do? Your Chazarat, the shots that you're saying aloud, can count for your Tashlumim for last night. You should say it. Okay, and the real reason why we're metakein tefillah b'koram is to be motzi someone who's not a baki, which is why in many kollels they don't do b'koram because in kollel everyone's a baki. That's the okay. Shtayim ve'en de shikven lishmo ma'ashat say de b'shvot tzmo letashlumim. Ben of our arvid or shachrit. But it's not good enough for me to fill my tashlumin by listening and answering amen to the shots. If I have a chiyuv for tashlumin, I miss marv, I can't discharge my obligation by listening to the chazot the shots by shachris. I need to actually say myself. Because a person is only yotze chazot the shots, a person is not baki. What's the proof that you're a baki? You just done Shemon Esrei a few minutes ago. Right? It doesn't work both ways. You can't be yotze Shemon Esrei by yourself and then say, okay, my tashlumin will count because I'll hear the shot tzibur. What are you talking about? I can't work. You're just davening it by yourself. You're davening it again. Fine. If you just with the Eved, you mean as a bishvil Tashlumim hashtal tefillah arfi. This I never knew until right now. You're yotze b'di Eved if what? If it's for hashlama for marv. So b'di Eved at shachris in the morning. If you forget the marv the night before, you could be yotze b'di Eved the chazashat to the shot tzibur if you have kavanah for it. Okay, fine. Again, and what's the reason why? Look at this last line in 16. We call Malcolm bazeh shehila tashlumin bishvil tefillat arvit shiver shud kel. So we see, because we see here's an example of Mariv, which is more meko, because it was only reshut. Here's a go. Here's a kula. Okay. Okay, good. What time is it now? Let's continue. This is one more part. Hefsek ben tefillah letefillah. So what do you do? Because that's a good place to finish Tashlumim. We can go into Shavuos, finishing Tashlumim. Here we go. So, 17. If you need to daven two Shemon back to back, either because of Tashlumim or because you just messed up, you need to pause. How long do you pause for? As long as it takes to walk 4 Amud. How long does that take?
1 second. 2, 3 seconds. Couple seconds. 20 seconds.
How many? 2?
4 Amos.
4 Amos. So what's it? 2 steps? 4 steps? Is that 4 steps?
Yeah.
Basically? Maybe 5 steps? Just want to round off? Pretty quick, right? A couple seconds. Because you have to be able to focus on it. Okay. That is essentially was brought down in 17. That's what he says in 18. Take a look at 19. Mishnah Berurah. It needs to come back to back. Why? You can't even you can't. Obviously, you need to look about halacha. Then that's maybe fine. But to learn, you should learn. You need, because again, the whole takana of davening tashlumin is to do it literally on the heels of your chiyuvit tefillah. However, what should you do if it's a shachrit or a mincha? Wait to hear chazot hashatz, and I guess while they're saying tachanun, then you should do your tashlumim. Okay. Yomar Ashrei, Gdel Mod Gam B'Tfilat Tashlumim, Yitok Divrei Tanchumin Shel Torah. What's he referring to here? So if you will go back to the Shulchan Aruch that we skipped, he said the following: Yomar Ashrei v'char kach yitpal Yud Chet Tashlumin Arvit. Right, you should really say Ashrei first before you do your before you daven your second one in the morning on Shacharis. Why? Because you shouldn't just daven Shemon Esrei. We know that the halacha is you should actually say Ashrei first. You shouldn't just go into Shemon Esrei without preparing. How do we prepare? By saying a perek of Tehillim. So he says you should say Ashrei in between the two. Again, if you forgot Mincha, if you forgot to say Ashrei and Mincha, you got to say Ashrei again. Do the Marv and then say your Shemon Esrei. Okie dokie. 20 is essentially the same. Okay. Now, I want to end with this. Is Tashlumim only, do you have 1 shot at Tashlumim? You get 2 shots at Tashlumim. Meaning, you forget Marv, you daven Shacharis. Ajay Mincha, you're like, oh my goodness, I never done Marv last night. But what is it now? It's now Mincha. So you daven your Shacharis, you finish your Mincha, like, Marv last night. Here we go. Nechlaku Arishonim. Haim nitan lashlim tefillah b'tefillah she'ena smuchala. Ela shtei tefillot achareha, like gon shachar b'arvit or mincha l'shachrit. L'maiseh. Nifsag lahalacha ki lo nitan lasot hashlama kazod. Ach, kedei lahashlim b'torah nedava im tenai, kedei latzei idei hashitot asorvot she'nitan lasot hashlama zehu. So again, we do this quote-unquote trick. Since it's a machlokas, if you can do it, what do? Ein Tashlumim ala tefillah smucha b'vad. Shim tavli pilat shachrit v'lo mincha mitpal avrit shtayim. Achrona Tashlumim mincha v'o shachrit ela Tashlumim v'chen b'shar tefillah. But comes along the Shulchan Aruch continues and says, Av al pishin tashlumin el tefillah smechalot tefillah. V'tefillot acheret lav sheiv sid en lehem tashlumin. Im ratza litpalel ota nidava shechadesh ba shum davar harashut biyado v'nachon lasot ken. Says Shulchan Aruch. Guess what? It's true. That marv that you missed and it's now mincha, you can kind of make it up, but what's our condition? Say it. The Torah Nidava. As we've seen this a few times already. If there's an opinion that says you should repeat it, repeat it. But again, you can always. What about the idea of being Moti Shem Hashem Vatala? If you really can't do it or shouldn't do it, maybe it's a Vatala, making a bracha for no reason. No. By saying Torah Nidava, you can always do it. And we'll end with this Mishnah Berurah. Who adin go to Yutet Vadayin. I am a primagadim shehiskim de tov sheitne v'yomar. And these are, again, what is our language of our Tanai? We haven't really seen that inside. We'll end with it. Im ani chayav litpalel harezo l'chovati. V'im lav harezo nidava. Ubazeh yotzei de kol deot sheyesh kamadiot shesovrim deyesh tashlumin letfila afilu lekama tefila. Because there are those beings that say, no, you can do a shlama even a couple of tefillot later. And therefore, you can always use that line. Whether if it's your, again, going back to other cases that we've seen over the past couple of days, am I chayav or not chayav? I'm not sure. Use this line. If I'm obligated, I'm obligated. If I'm not obligated, it's in nedava. Whether that's because of maybe you're working, maybe you're also b'tzibur, which should be patur. Maybe you started at a time that you weren't chayav. Or all these conditions, perhaps that's what you should always say before you daven your tefillah tashlumim. Have a wonderful day.